Henry McNeill Turner was born free on February 1st, 1834 in Newberry, South Carolina. He was of both European and African ancestry. His father, Hardy Turner, was born to a white plantation owning mother and a black father. Henry grew up with his paternal mother and paternal grandmother. Now, his paternal grandfather was recognized as having Royal Mandingo markings, so he was not sold into slavery, but instead was sent to work for a Quaker family, where he later married a free woman of color. According to Wikipedia and the New England Encyclopedia, Henry Turner worked as a custodian for a law firm in Abbeville, where they noticed his obvious intelligence. At a time when it was prohibited to teach blacks to read and write, they took pity on him and decided to teach him anyway. When he was 19 in 1853, he obtained his preacher's license from the Methodist Church of the South after being inspired by a Methodist revival when he was around the age of 14. In 1858, he moved his family to St. Louis, Missouri. And at the time, kidnapping and slave trading were common according to documentation, so he feared for his family's safety. He decided to work and become an ordained minister of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and he studied the classics, Hebrew, divinity at the Trinity College. He also served in Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., where he met many influential Republicans. During the Civil War, he organized one of the first regiments of black troops and was appointed as the chaplain to them. Now, after the war, President Johnson appointed him to work alongside white clergymen in the Freedoms Bureau in Georgia. He ran for political office in Macon and was elected to represent Georgia, or represent the Republican Party in 1868. At the time, the Democrats still had most of the power throughout the South, so he and 26 other newly appointed Republican black legislators were denied their seats. After the federal government protested, they were finally allowed to have their seats during the second session. He was later appointed by the Republican administration in 1869 to be the postmaster of Macon. As time passed, he watched the Democratic Party regain their power through the South. He made some changes. He began founding the International Migration Society, better known as the American Blacks to Africa. Over the course of 11 years, he sent 2 ships to Liberia with approximately 500 immigrants. He never sent any more ships after that. Many of the immigrants returned because they did not like the lack of economic opportunity, disease, and the culture shock of Africa. Now, he married 4 times in his life, and he survived 3 of his 4 wives. He had 14 children with his first wife, Eliza Peacher, but only 4 of them survived into adulthood. Turner was a successful bishop. He traveled to Africa 4 times in his life. He was a writer and a worldly man. He died on May 8th, 1950 in Windsor, Canada. He was traveling there on church business. Today, he is buried in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, the speech I give today by Henry Turner, he gave to his colleagues in 1872 when he was expelled from his position in state legislature where he represented Georgia. The federal government had withdrawn their interest in the matter and allowed the White South to have their way in the affairs of the states. Mr. Speaker, I wish the members of this House to understand the position I take. I hold that I am a member of this body. Therefore, sir, I shall neither fawn or cringe before any party, nor stoop to beg them for my rights. I am here to demand my rights, and to hurl thunderbolts at the men who dare to cross the threshold of my manhood. The scene presented in this House today is one unparalleled in the history of the world. Never in the history of the world has a man been arraigned before a body clothed with legislative, judicial, or executive functions, charged with the offense of being of a darker hue than his fellow man. It has remained for the state of Georgia, in the very heart of the 19th century, to call a man before the bar and there charge him with the act for which he is no more responsible for than the head which he carries upon his shoulders. The Anglo-Saxon race, sir, is a most surprising one. I was not aware that there was in the character of that race so much cowardice or pusillanimity. I tell you, sir, that this is a question which will not die today. This event will be remembered by posterity for ages yet to come, and while the sun shall continue to climb the hills of heaven. We are told that if the black man want to speak, they must speak through white trumpets. They must be adulterated. If the black men want their sentiments expressed, they must be adulterated and sent through white messengers, who will quibble and equivocate and evade as rapidly as the pendulum of a clock. Why, sir, though we are not white, we have accomplished much. We have built up your country. We have worked in your fields and garnered your harvests for 250 years. And what do we ask of you in return? Do we ask you for compensation for the sweat our fathers bore for you, for the tears you have caused and the hearts you have broken, for the lives you have curtailed and the blood you have spilled? Do we ask retaliation? We ask it not. We are willing to let the dead pass, bury the dead, but we ask you now for our rights.